It seems like in the anime industry, the major problem people have with these school comedy type shows that they're all the same. It seems like the more of these shows that are made, the more generic they get. Repeated scenarios, character archetypes, and so on. There are a number of things like these a show can do to separate themselves, but the question I pose today is what does Boku wa Tomodachi ga Sukunai, otherwise known as Haganai, do to make it worth your time to watch this show as opposed to any of the other shows of its genre? Let's find out in the second review of Ecchi Month, where I review an ecchi show every Saturday in the month of February. So without further ado, let's continue Ecchi Month with my review of Haganai. Every teenager has undergone the awkwardness of high school, making new friends and trying to fit in. It's hard enough doing so under normal circumstances, but try doing so with blonde hair and a bad boy outward appearance in Japan. After transferring to a new school, Kotaka Hasegawa was instantly labeled delinquent due to his eccentric appearance. Having classmates shiver in your presence is not a good way to start off the school year. One day, Kotaka has a surprise encounter with a female classmate, Yozura, who just might be an outcast just like him. She has both a bad temper and an imaginary friend. However, even outcasts desire companionship. The two decide to form the Neighbors Club, specifically designed for people who don't have many friends. Kotaka, the lone wolf in the wild terrains of high school, had finally found his pack. But will this dysfunctional bunch be able to form a relationship with each other, or will their unique personalities collide? To answer my question from before, what does Haganai do to give itself an original identity is simple. Nothing. There really is no outliers in the story construction. The show sets up nothing new in its genre, and it really follows all the archetypes and scenarios shows of this caliber have set up. The story is a simple construction with nothing new coming into play. A group of friends form a club revolving around making friends, somehow not realizing that by making this club, they're all friends. Even once the whole gang is assembled, their goal is still to find friends, even though they've all found their fellow club members. Not sure if that's a fantastic use of irony or I should be tearing my hair out in frustration because they never come to that realization. Anyway, it's a sad thing to say that the show offers nothing new. There are a number of things these shows can do to make themselves stand out, such as in Saikano, Kato's character took the show from good to great, but this show really doesn't do anything of the sort. But that's not to say I didn't enjoy it. As average as the show was, the scenarios that took place and the antics of the characters were enough to put a smile on my face. As I said last week, shows like these cannot be judged in the same way as other shows, and you have to have a different mindset when reviewing. But at the same time, as enjoyable as this show was, I can find this amount of enjoyment in almost any ecchi harem. Very little progression is made through the first season, and it really seemed like they started from square one at the end point of the show, aside from adding new members. This show also thought it would be a good idea to add a conclusion at the end relating to the two main characters' backstory, luring at it throughout the entire series with flashbacks and subtle hints. But to me, this just seemed out of place. The show chose to go an ecchi harem comedy route through 95% of its runtime, but then decided to take a turn towards a compelling backstory dealing with past friendships. With the comedic structure of the show, this seemed to me like a way to force the ending and shove some character backstory on our faces just so the main characters weren't always friendless. This more serious moment really took away more than it added for me, feeling forced and out of place in a show that revolved mostly around comedic scenarios. So for the story of Haganai, it doesn't really bring anything new to the table. An average setup, stereotypical scenarios, nothing new to give the show its own identity. That's not to say the show wasn't enjoyable, because I did have a good time watching, but you can find almost the same amount of fun and enjoyment in 90% of the anime of the same genre. Also, the ending felt forced with story devices that were predictable, out of place, and just plain not needed. Lastly, in terms of ecchi, because that's what we're all here for, this show was much lighter than I expected. There's very little nudity amongst the characters who aren't 10, and the ecchi is mostly just a lot of fan service with swimsuits, boob jiggles, and the like. To be honest, even in terms of ecchi, this show isn't that different. The characters for the show are incredibly weak, to say the least. The one thing I did like about these characters is that, despite them all being harem stereotypes, they were on the lesser used side of archetypes, like a Himidare, a perverted scientist, and a Shinibu lolly. But at the same time, these characters do not go beyond these archetypes, but we will get more into that as we go over each character. The first character, and the only male in the show, is Kotaka Hasegawa. Kotaka Hasegawa is the main protagonist of Haganai. He is the second member and co-founder of the Neighbors Club, who was notorious for being a delinquent and bullying many of his peers. However, those claims are false, and the reason why he has such a bad reputation is due to his hair. He's actually a very soft-spoken and polite individual. Aside from being exactly like the main character from Toradora, he really has no defining traits. Now, the fact that he is seen as a delinquent and is unable to make friends because of this is something that separates him from other horror protagonists, but it's about all he has. He has very little backstory, but the backstory he is given feels out of place given the style of the show, being used to force a conclusion to the show. The next character is is Yozora Mikazuki. Yozora is the female protagonist of Haganai. She is the founder, first member, and club president of the Neighbors Club. Prideful and easily provoked by nature, Yozora detests normals, but decides to make a club to make friends. The reason why Yozora doesn't have many friends is because she's a natural loner who dislikes normals, preferring to have an air friend who she calls Tomo-chan. Yozora is a character I'm really not too fond of. Some of this is due to her personality, but a lot of it is the show's portrayal of her. She starts off in a rivalry with Senna, butting heads very frequently, but as the show progressed, this rivalry became far more one-sided, resulting in Yozora coming across as a serious bully. This conflict would have been better if they just kept it as a rivalry, but the fact that it shifted to a one-sided onslaught put a bad taste in my mouth, mainly in regards to Yozora's character. The character this bullying is focused on is Best Girl, Senna Kashiwazaki. Senna is the first member of the Neighbors Club. Her wealth, beauty, and outstanding academic and athletic performance has made her popular among male students, and likewise they have made her an outcast among girls. Despite being constantly surrounded by boys, all she wants are true friends, which drives her to join the Neighbors Club. Senna doesn't have any female friends because she is envied by the other girls due to her good looks and popularity with the opposite sex. The only thing that I wish they would have changed about Senna is that she would have been more obsessed with Erige as opposed to dating sims. It would have added a medium for more ecchi, as well as giving her more to separate her character. Senna's character is really only what you see at face value, but has enough to her personality to easily make her best girl. And by personality, I mean she has extremely large boobs. For the next characters, the sad thing about them is that they only have one defining trait they are ruled by, and do not stray from this in any way. Maria Takayama is the supervising teacher and moderator of the Neighbors Club, somehow at the age of 10, whose character revolves around Oni-chans and poop jokes. And not the good kind of poop jokes, mind you, just repetition of the word poop. Yukimura Kusunoki is a cross-dressing maid whose gender is up for debate that becomes Kotoka's underling to try and become more manly. Rika Shiguma is a perverted scientist whose sole form of personality lies in her various sexual fantasies. And lastly is Kobota Hasegawa, Kotoka's cosplaying sister, but she's voiced by Kana Hanazawa and is absolutely adorable, so she's fine just the way she is. The problem with all these characters is that they are only what is seen at face value in their archetypes. They have no feelings, no emotions, and are left just to be shells of characters solely for the sake of comedy. There's no insight in any of the characters of the show aside from Yozora and Senna, and the little that is given to them is so cliche and sparse that it's hard to separate Haganai from the thousands of other ecchi comedies. This makes the characters for Haganai one of its worst aspects. Just like everything else in Haganai, the art and animation are completely average, but let's be real, that's not what you watch these shows for, and I guess it's also par for the course. The art is really bland with no real distinguishing things to give it any merit. The only thing that really made this show any different were the character designs, which I actually did enjoy, but like I said, this really isn't a type of anime that you watch for its artistic merit, so it never really takes away from the enjoyment. As if I hadn't said this enough, the soundtrack did another thing that really didn't do anything for me by way of giving itself an original feel. Well, yes, it's a show that doesn't need an OST that emphasizes a certain atmosphere. A good soundtrack could have been what this show needed to stand out, but alas, there's nothing new here and nothing that really makes for a good standalone listen. The opening is quite catchy, however, and really fits the series well. The ending is good, and seeing that the voice actress for Yozora sings it is a nice touch, but even still isn't good enough to redeem the OST. The voice actors all played their roles very well and did a good job at portraying each character's defining traits, which is good because that's all they really have. And obviously the best voice actor of the show is Kana Hanazawa, who plays Jinibu Lali and Kotoka's sister Koboto Hasegawa. God, that woman truly can play any role. Can she just hurry up and marry me already? Haganai is a show that really suffers from the flaw of not doing anything to make itself stand out amongst anime of the genre. And for that reason, I find it really hard to recommend you watch this show. I'm not going to go as far as to say you shouldn't watch it because for an ecchi harem, you really can't go wrong with this one. For this show, it really just has to deal with your opinions on average. If you take everything you watch at face value and enjoy it no matter what, then I can see why you would like this show. While it doesn't do anything different, it's still an enjoyable show for those who like seeing antics of club attending high schoolers. But for those who want more, or for those who are tired of seeing the same ecchi harem setup and character archetypes, I can say with utmost certainty this show is not for you. The story is incredibly simple with no interesting setups or dynamics that make it any different from many other shows of its kind. The characters, while they are on the lesser used side, are all standard archetypes of ecchi harems and are defined by their traits with no real emotions and are just shells of characters used for the sake of comedy, aside from Senna, Yozora, and Kotoka. The art, animation, and sound do just enough to make the show work, but just like everything else, offer nothing new to be experienced, with the exception of Kana Hanazawa, of course. Even in terms of ecchi, this show has nothing that stands out, mainly consisting of your standard beach bikini scene or lewd sexual fantasy, and I believe this has to be said, but only one scene actually gave me a boner. Too much information? Sorry about that. In the end, I would say if you like these types of shows, go for it. You won't be disappointed. And heck, even I had fun watching the antics of the characters. But if you're looking for something new or expecting something that's not ecchi harem stereotypes, you've come to the wrong place. As for the recommendations, I think you should check out My Teen Romantic Comedy Snafu. Snafu takes the concepts of Haganai and takes them to the next level by actually portraying the characters as humans through its dialogue. And you should also check out Absolute Duo for more ecchi harem goodness. Not really anything special here either, but hey, if you liked Haganai, I'm sure you like this too. So that wraps it up for the second second week of Ecchi month. I hope you guys enjoyed. Please leave a like if you did, and if you guys enjoyed, please share this video with all of your friends, all of your pets, all of your mom and dad's friends. Just share the love of Ecchi month around. Next week I'm going to be reviewing Mayochiki, so I'm going to get to writing that review. Leave a like if you enjoyed, share this video, share the Ecchi month goodness with everyone you know, and I will see you guys next time. Later.